back there. That's it. Remember you're floating in the I have you. Look at him. You just
Welcome to Transformation to Parenthood. I'm Dr. Lolly DeYoung. In this TV series, we'll explore the kaleidoscope of choices in pregnancy, birth, and early parenting. We'll look at where you birth, how you birth, and with whom you birth, and talk about infant feeding and healthy family living. Our aim is to support you in transforming into a parent who courageously uses their voice, respects the choices of others, and ultimately trust themselves.
We get to the hospital and things are progressing very well, and everything that I had learned up until this point all just came together. The end result, which is having a family and you know what my purpose is in life, is to support my family, and to just the moment when I was going to meet my son, that's all that came to mind, and so everything else was just a blur.
Well, my background is in human and organizational systems and human development. And just based on my own birth experiences, which were a number of years ago, I've come to the conclusion that people want to make their own choices, but they want to make informed choices. So what we're aiming to do with this TV series is to present information, to bring in subject matter experts, to talk to parents, and explore the kaleidoscope of choices that are available to new parents.
As far as the labor goes, what I remember the most was just how I was treated. And I think that's really important because it really still, even a year later, that's what I remember the most, is how I was treated giving birth. And it just creates, you know, a bond between my son and I, a bond in our family, and just a beautiful memory of what that day was.
Where you give birth is an important decision in pregnancy. Depending on where you live, the primary caregivers practicing in your community, the level of facility that's available to you, and your own level of risk, your options may vary. In this episode, we'll look at the various birth settings, including hospital, freestanding birth center, and home. We'll provide you with information to assist you in deciding where to birth as you go along your transformation to parenthood.
When a woman is pregnant, she has several options available to her as to where she might like to give birth. She can choose to have her baby in the hospital, she can choose to have her baby at home, in a birth center, or another setting of her choosing.
Choosing to give birth in hospital is sort of a traditional concept for most people. And for many women, their choice to give birth in hospital is to comfort their partner, their family, because that's where they want to give birth. They feel that they're in an area where there's lots of help if things go wrong.
The inspiration for this hospital, of course, comes from Lois Hole, who, as you know, was the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. She was very keen on promoting women's health care. I would certainly say the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation has been one of those bodies that have been very actively involved in this hospital. In terms of our referral base, actually, it's not only other parts of Alberta. We get referrals regularly from northern BC, we get referrals from Saskatchewan, we sometimes get referrals from Manitoba, we get referrals from the northern provinces. So our referral base actually is quite wide.
I've seen many women who had anticipated a home birth or a birth center, though I would say most of the time it's a home birth. And then something has changed in the pregnancy where now we feel that the risks of a home birth are too great in order to follow that path.
So there are a lot of different physicians that could be involved in the care of this patient, and sometimes in this duration of 20-30 weeks of care, it could involve a lot of different visits for that patient. And sometimes we try to optimize that by bringing these physicians together for that patient rather than patient going to all these individual physicians, and that also improves communication.
And I've always been very impressed at how much effort is put in on the part of the obstetricians to really see where our clientele is coming from. as far as trying to get as much out of the experience that would make for a fulfilling birth for them, and still recognize that we might need to do the next best thing if the ideal birth of your dreams is not in the cards due to a safety concern.
Unfortunately, we do see a lot of these couples going through these difficult times, but I do believe that our services and all the other specialties that are involved in our clinic, I think, try to make that experience as easy and less stressful for these couples as possible. And hopefully not only we are improving the outcomes for these babies and for the mothers, but hopefully the whole experience that these couples or these families have to go through is a little bit better than what it would have been had we not been involved.
Generally, obstetricians are pretty amazing at helping us and our clients get the type of care that is still meaningful for them and still in keeping with their values, but still addressing the issue of that need for a higher level of expertise or care.
I would hope more often than not we do provide care that is compassionate and loving.
Out-of-hospital birth is a decision that many women make, whether that's at home or in a freestanding birth center. In this segment, we'll talk about out-of-hospital birth and its safety, and we'll also visit the Lucina Birth Center, where we see a collaborative model of practice, where midwives practice alongside naturopathic doctors, acupuncturists, and other healthcare professionals to offer a range of services to their clients.
It's a girl! It's a girl! I knew it was a girl! I knew you were a girl! I knew you were! Oh, yeah!
There's been lots of studies that have been done on the safety of home birth or out-of-hospital birth.
Home birth is a safe process if you have a robust transport system that can manage that. If you do not have a transport system, then home births is a risk and the patient needs to be informed about. So come back to access and information. If the patient is informed about the risk, then it's their choices though. You can't enforce choices on the patient, but you can inform them.
They've never been able to prove that it's not safe. In fact, it is as safe as hospitals. But there's a key difference, and that's there's a lot fewer interventions at home than what you'd have in hospital. When we look at the people who choose midwifery, what we're seeing is very low cesarean section rate, as well as other interventions. We're starting to see women who give birth much more easily than what you see in the literature. So the average first-time mom's labor will be 12 hours, according to the literature. We find it's more like 6 hours. Sometimes it's 2 to 3 hours. There's many women at the end that will say, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Even with the pushing, they find that by the time they get around to it, it's a very satisfying experience.
If women are very adamant on having a home birth, that is exactly where they need to be. Women who need to be in the hospital and feel secure and safe there need to be in the hospital. But there's a number of women in the middle, and it's not just women, it's their husbands, their families. They don't feel necessarily comfortable at home, but they don't feel very comfortable in a hospital environment either.
Giving birth at the birth center, for many people, they don't have to worry about tidying up their house, about people around their house or their condos or apartments.
The focus is on them and the birth that they would like to have, not necessarily an institutional's way of doing birth, but their own individual birth and their own individual experience. So a birthing center provides that. And fortunately, Kirsten had seen this building that we now have as our birthing center and had mentioned that it could be a very good location for a birthing center. It's very close to the Misericordia Hospital. It's got lots of room for what we had envisioned in 1993 as being a center, not just as a birthing center, but also as an educational center, office space for practitioners, kind of a hub of activity for women.
The goal of the center was to have these wellness practitioners all working together so that we could collaborate on care for women, and we could really give them a lot of support. So they wouldn't have to be running around the city, but we would all specialize in fertility, pregnancy, babies, all the things that they would need during that transition.
What we've noticed is that we've been able to support women with a vast majority of modalities, including the Chinese medicine that we do, naturopathic medicine, the psychologist that's on hand providing counseling services, hypnobirthing. It's wonderful to be able to count on our colleagues to help if there's something that we can't deal with.
When we're talking about rural families and the travel some of them have to do to get to one of these hospitals, I would hope that we would be able to set up lots of satellite midwifery clinics. The model that's used here at the Lucina Birth Center makes sense to spread around the province. It becomes a much more cost-effective way. So you could run the public health, the midwifery clinics through this one building. You could rent out spaces to local health practitioners like herbalists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, even physicians, and start to get some more work across the different health professionals, the nurses, doctors, and physicians, and midwives. So yeah, that would be really amazing if something like that happened.
Welcome back. In this segment, we'll hear about the challenges for primary caregivers in both urban and rural settings. In addition, we'll offer a sustainable model of obstetric practice that could work in Alberta. And finally, we'll show you a collaborative model of practice in Rocky Mountain House at the Blessing House.
I think the most important thing about giving birth in your community is that you get to stay in your community. You are with your friends, you're with your family, you're with people that you trust, people that you know, and that is so important to the experience.
Even to start about issues in an urban center, we can't ignore the fact that the baby boom that we've had in Calgary over the past few years is astounding, and that affects all the care providers, whether that's midwifery or family physicians with maternity background or obstetricians. We often have to make decisions not based on what necessarily is the ideal care for our patients, but about where is availabilities.
And that can interrupt our client's continuity as well, but we do have the luxury of being able to take the caregiver with the woman, which really is quite...
Yes, that's ideal. But it is, I mean, it's very disruptive for families to be moved for a different hospital. If you live in the Northeast, to be suddenly told that you have to deliver your baby in the Southeast because of capacity issues. So what if the partner doesn't drive a car? What if they have multiple children? There's all sorts of issues that arise that's not ideal because of capacity.
You are in a smaller community. You're going to have less resources. You're going to have less sort of high-tech things available to you. So lots of times you're going to work in an environment where you don't have access to, say, a specialist consultation. So an obstetrician is not going to be on-site available to you. You may or may not have the availability of an OR, an anesthetist. So things like epidurals, like being able to do a C-section, are not going to be at your fingertips. You're not going to be able to access those things very quickly.
So if there's a community, there is no obstetrician willing to go there, or that community does not have a population large enough to support an obstetrician being there, because obviously if I'm an obstetrician, I need to have a significant amount of patients that I can take care of. Otherwise, I would have a practice, I'll be doing one delivery a month, and that does not allow me to have a practice. So certainly in those situations, the best what we can do is have a physician who has advanced surgical skills.
Really the challenging part of the job is to making sure that our patients really are low risk, and recognizing pregnancies can start out low risk and change, at which point then they need to be referred to the appropriate level of care. And it's not always what the patient necessarily would want. So it takes a bit of explaining about, you know, we want to deliver you in High River, that's why we do this, but at the end of the day, we want healthy mom, healthy babe. And if we think that we don't have what you need for that, then we're going to send you somewhere else.
To have sustainable obstetrical care in Alberta, we need organizational support. We need a supportive education system. We need the necessary financial support. We need a transportation and information integrated system. Those are probably the key concepts in sustainable rural obstetrics. The last thing is collaborative care.
We're in the Blessing House, which we've had for about 4 years. And what happens here is 3 days of the week, women come for prenatal care. There's 3 midwives that operate out of this facility. And then 2 days a week, a nurse practitioner practices here.
They can have their needs met, whether it is for prenatal care, postpartum care, general health care needs, their child's needs, being able to do that all in one area.
We also have a space in the basement where midwifery students can stay when they're doing their preceptorship with us. People in the community have used this for mom support groups I've met here, as well as breastfeeding support groups. And the vision for this house was to have a place where families could come and explore their options around being parents, about how they're going to become parents.
The most valuable thing that I think that anybody can offer to a pregnant woman is the ability to go someplace that you feel safe, that you feel welcome, that you feel that you trust the people that are going to be looking after you. There just isn't anything more important than that.
As you've heard today, where you choose to birth is an important decision in pregnancy. Whether you birth in hospital or out of hospital, either in a home or a freestanding birth center, the choice is yours. It's important to weigh the considerations and to feel safe. I hope that wherever you birth, you're surrounded by a team of people who do everything they can to give you the best birth possible. I'm Dr. Lolly DeYoung. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us for future episodes. you.